Morning, children. Today we are going to discuss about the autotrophs and the heterotrophs importance in ecosystem. So, and also differences between autotrophs and heterotrophs we will be discuss. What are the autotrophs? What is the just meaning of autotrophs? Means which can prepare their own food by using sunlight without depending on any other organisms are called autotrophs. You know very well about this. So heterotrophs means which will be depend on others for food. Okay, they are called heterotrophs. So today we are going to little bit extra information we will get about which one, the autotrophs and heterotrophs. Okay, children, observe very carefully and you should have to listen very carefully. First, autotrophs, the producers. So these are the producer organisms. Autotrophs are what? Producer organisms. The heterotrophs are consumers. You know very well, consumers means which will depend on others and they will consume from others. Okay, so they are consumers. Autotrophs, producers, consumers. Heterotrophs, consumers. First point. Next, they prepare their organic nutrients themselves. They can prepare their own food, organic nutrients. They won't depend on anyone, so they can prepare their own organic nutrients. But heterotrophs, they will depend on others for organic nutrients. So they get only inorganic material from outside and they will convert the inorganic material into organic. Which one? Autotrophs. Inorganic materials they will get from outside and they will convert these inorganic materials and forms the organic materials. But here both inorganic materials and organic materials both they will get, the heterotrophs will get from outside, but here autotrophs only inorganic materials they will get. Later they will convert these inorganic materials into organic materials. That is important point. Next, another important thing is they obtain energy. What's the energy source of autotrophs? The energy source of autotrophs is sunlight. The energy source of our autotrophs are sunlight or chemoautotrophs, means you know very well, inorganic chemical reactions. So they will get energy from the sunlight or inorganic chemical reactions. But here they will get energy from organic nutrients. Okay, energy from which one? Organic nutrients. This is a very important. So autotrophs energy source is what? Sunlight or inorganic chemical reactions. You know, chemosynthetic, chemotropic organisms. Okay, so these are the nitrogen fixing bacteria, best example. So like that, so energy is a sunlight or inorganic chemical reactions. They're organic nutrients. Next, another important thing is very important. These usually add O2 to the environment. What autotrophs will do? What's the photosynthesis? They will utilize what you call carbon dioxide and they can produce the valuable gas. You know very well, we are living because of that gas. What do you call that gas? Oxygen. So it will, autotrophs will provide which one? Oxygen to the environment. Heterotrophs, what they will do? They will utilize the oxygen and releases the, add the carbon dioxide to the what you call environment. These 2 points you should have to remember. Next, the examples of autotrophs. What are the examples of autotrophs? The examples of autotrophs generally you know very well, plants and blue-green algae is the cyanobacteria. Blue-green also called cyanobacteria, but even though that is bacteria characteristics are there, but that will perform the photosynthesis. That is the reason these are kept under blue-green algae, kept under which one? The autotrophs. So autotrophs mainly plants and the blue-green algae examples. So many are there here, plants and blue-green algae. Heterotrophs examples, animals from Porifera, Coelenterata, Protista, Platyhelminth, like that. So many animals, all animals, Protista, bacteria, fungi, these all are called heterotrophs. Now, the autotrophs, very important bit. This is a neat point of view, very useful. The autotrophs will have the photosynthetic pigments. What the autotrophs have? They possess photosynthetic pigments. Best example, how they are performing the photosynthesis in the sense, they have a very important photosynthetic pigment that is called chlorophyll. What do you call the pigment? Chlorophyll. Because of that pigment, they will perform the photosynthesis process and produce the food. So in the heterotrophs, there is no photosynthetic pigments. So nothing photosynthetic related pigments not at all there in the heterotrophs. That's why they are unable to prepare their own food. That's why they are called heterotrophs. Next, autotrophs, they are first trophic level. So in the food chain or in the food web, whatever you take, the producers, they are producers, no. That's why first in the trophic level, we have more energy, and the heterotrophs from secondary higher trophic level, second and higher trophic levels. Like this, the major differences are there between the autotrophs and heterotrophs. Autotrophs and heterotrophs. Once again, children should listen very carefully. They are producers, they are consumers. They will obtain inorganic materials and converts the organic materials. So from outside they will get inorganic and they will change it to organic. But here heterotrophs, organic and inorganic materials they will get from outside only. Here the energy source is sunlight or inorganic chemical reactions for autotrophs. In the heterotrophs, energy from organic nutrients they will obtain. So they will add oxygen to the environment. Here the heterotrophs add the carbon dioxide to the environment. Examples for autotrophs: plants, blue-green algae. Example for heterotrophs: animals, protist, bacteria and fungi. The autotrophs have photosynthetic pigments, example chlorophyll. And heterotrophs, photosynthetic pigments are absent. So in the autotrophs first trophic level, the autotrophs are there. In the heterotrophs second and higher trophic levels are there. These are the important things you should have to remember. Next, we are going to discuss about another important concept in this chapter, that is ecosystem examples. So ecosystem means what I said, there will be biotic and abiotic components completely interact each other, like that we discussed, right? So first today we will discuss about garden ecosystem. What's the ecosystem name? Garden means garden is a artificial man-made ecosystem. What will be there in the garden, how it will be considered as an ecosystem, that one we will be considered. Observe very carefully. It is an artificial terrestrial ecosystem. Artificial, what's the meaning of artificial? Man-made. Natural means nature will be, but here man-made, that's why it is called artificial. And it is terrestrial. What's the meaning of terrestrial? On the earth, on the land. Okay, so that's why this ecosystem is called artificial terrestrial ecosystem first. Next one, it comprises of following components. What are the abiotic components in the garden ecosystem? Very, very important. So abiotic components, most important thing is soil. It consists of soil and also its chemicals. The soil and its chemicals, pH, okay, nutrient concentration, everything will become chemicals, nutrient concentration. And physical, what are the physical components? In the abiotic, chemical and physical, right? Soil and chemicals, nutrients which are present in the soil and pH. Next, physical components of the what are the physical components in that? The soil texture, soil water, air, aeration, porosity, sunlight, air, etc. These all are considered as a physical components, right? So the physical and chemical togetherly considered under abiotic components. So chemical, soil and chemicals which are present in the soil, physical, soil texture, soil water, aeration, porosity, sunlight, air, etc. These all under considered which one? The abiotic components. Next, come to the biotic components which are present in the garden ecosystem. As usual, what is there? Wherever you see whatever the ecosystem, always top priority for what? In the biotic components, producers. Because producers only very important for everything. So the producers which are present in the garden ecosystem, number one, biotic components, grasses, plants. What you called? Grasses and plants like rose plant, jasmine plant and trees. Grasses, plants and trees. These all are producers in the garden ecosystem. Then come to the consumers. What about the consumers? Which will depend on the producers, right? Animals such as in the garden, what we will see generally, frogs are there. Okay, insects are there, birds are there. When you go to the garden, generally what you will see, frogs, insects, birds, like that you will see. These all are consumers. In this frog and insects, birds, which one is a primary consumer, which one is secondary consumer and tertiary consumers? Come on, you see. In this consumers, primary consumer is insects. So first producer on producers, who will eat, producers eaten by insects, means plants eaten by insects. Then come to secondary consumers. So insects eaten by which one? The frogs. And then come to tertiary consumers. It will be kites. Are present in the garden ecosystem. All these living organisms interact with each other. So this primary, secondary, tertiary, and producers, consumers, all will be interact each other. Very, very important. And their growth. Why they will interact each other? For their growth, for reproduction and other activities influenced by abiotic components of ecosystems. So abiotic components influences these all what you call biotic components interactions. Very important point, that one. Next, last one, what is there in the garden ecosystem? The decomposers are there. Decomposers means, you know very well, they will depend on dead and decaying matter. So mainly decomposers are microorganisms present in the soil. Very, very important. They will cleanse the earth. So decomposers in the sense, they are the microorganisms. They are present on the earth. Okay, are present in the earth. Very, very important point. Another point is the especially present in the soil. The earth in the sense, the decomposers are microorganisms present in the soil. And next, these cannot be seen with the naked eye. So the microorganisms we can't see with the naked eye. So then what? This provides the raw materials back to the environment. So they will decompose the dead and decaying matter, and the raw material which one is there, again that will give back to the which one? Environment. So such a great work, cleaning the earth by decomposition of dead and decaying matters. Decompose the dead and decaying matter, and what they will do, further reuse by the producer. So after decomposition, the material will be formed or not? Humus. That will be again used by whom? The producers. So like that, it's a cyclic process. Okay, producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers. Then death of tertiary consumers leads to decomposition by decomposers. Then again humus formation. Again that will be taken by producers. It's a cyclic process. So decomposers will be there in the ecosystem also. So what is the main importance of the decomposers function? The maintain fertility of the garden soil. So decomposers mainly fertility of the garden soil, they will be maintain fertility of the garden soil. The next one, another important one, pond ecosystem. What is a pond? So man-made is garden ecosystem. Naturally formed pond ecosystem. The pond ecosystem mainly consists of same as usual, abiotic components and biotic components. What are the abiotic components? Again divide into physical, chemicals. What are the physical? Come on, physical components in the abiotic. So first one is the temperature. What is called? The temperature and the light. Okay, temperature, the light, intensity, the temperature, light, intensity, these all are comes under the physical. Okay, chemical, the pH of water, elements, minerals, dissolved gases. So temperature, light, intensity, pH of water, and the physical, the chemicals, what? Elements, okay, which are present in the water. Okay, this is important. Next, dissolved gases, organic and inorganic compounds. So elements, minerals, dissolved gases, organic and inorganic compounds, these all are called chemical compounds. But these physical and chemical comes under which one? Abiotic components. Come to producers. What are the producers in the pond? Aquatic ecosystem, in the water. The phytoplanktons. Always you to remember, the producers in the water or aquatic ecosystem or pond ecosystem, phytoplanktons. Then consumers, zooplanktons, water fleas, larvae of insects. So primary consumers are zooplanktons, water fleas, larvae of insects. The secondary consumers. What are the secondary consumers in the pond ecosystem? The secondary consumers, crustaceans, rotifers, small fishes, frogs, they will be considered as a secondary consumers. The tertiary consumers are large fish and water birds will be there. So in the producers, in the biotic components, phytoplanktons, consumers, zooplanktons, water flies, larvae of insects, crustaceans, rotifers, small fish and frogs, large fish and water birds. Like this, primary, secondary, tertiary consumers are there in the pond ecosystem. What about decomposers? Decomposers also will be there in the pond ecosystem. What are the decomposers in the pond ecosystem? Same, bacteria and fungi. Bacteria and fungi distributed throughout the pond, especially bottom of the pond. These decomposers are there. Even the producers get energy from where? Solar energy. They will perform some photosynthesis. Okay. So producers, these producers are eaten by mollusks. For example, primary consumers. Mollusk is eaten by fish. Secondary consumers, fish eaten by snakes. So tertiary consumers. Last, decomposers. Decomposition after humus, dead body, vertical decomposed organic matter, again used by producers. It's a cyclic process will be takes place in the pond ecosystem. So like this, the what you called garden ecosystem, artificial, natural ecosystem, pond ecosystem will be there in our ecosystems examples. Okay, the next one, another important concept is there, that is the food chain. So food chain and food webs also there. Generally your idea what is the food chain, that one we will be discussing. Food acts as a fuel to provide energy. You know very well, food is the very important for the energy, fuel to provide energy to do work. It's true for all living organisms. Okay, in any given ecosystem you see energy transforming is going on, right? So linked systematic chain. For example, producers eaten by mollusk eaten by fish eaten by snake come dead after decomposition. So it's a what you call chain system. So the interaction among various components of the environment involves flow of energy. So from producers to energy flowing, mollusk to fish to snakes. Like that flow of energy is going on. For in the grassland ecosystem, green plants, autotrophs, you know very well, they will eaten by herbivores. Okay, plants eaten by herbivores. Herbivores eaten by animal flesh eating animals like carnivores. The carnivores eaten by large carnivores. Okay, like this, what is going on? Producers to herbivores, herbivores to carnivores. The next level, what's going on? The energy is also moving, transforming. So all organisms are interlinked. So this interlinking only called the sequential interlinking of an organism. The sequential interlinking of organism involving transfer of food energy from the producers through the series of organisms with repeated eating and being eaten is called the food chain. Eating and being eaten. Okay, this point you should remember. Repeated eating and being eaten is called the food chain. Once again, the sequential interlinking of organisms involving transfer of food energy from the producers, okay, through a series of organisms with repeated eating and by being eaten is called the food chain. So primary producers are eaten by primary consumers. Primary consumers are eaten by secondary consumers. Secondary consumer eaten by tertiary consumers. Tertiary consumer eaten by quaternary consumers. Like that, the transferring energy, food energy from producers through series of organisms like primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, quaternary consumers. So of series of with repeated eating. So this eating and eating by being eaten is called the what you called food chain. So like this, the pond ecosystem, what you called this one, the garden ecosystem and the food chain will be there, and the difference between the autotrophs and heterotrophs will be there in our syllabus. So you should have to remember what are the producers in the garden ecosystem, what are the consumers in the garden ecosystem, decomposers. Same like that, what are the pond ecosystem producers, consumers, decomposers. In the abiotic components, physical components, chemical components, you should have to remember. Why? Because they will ask the bits. And what is the definition of food chain also? They will be food energy will be transferred to continuous, what you called the series of organisms. So that is also you should have to remember. In the next class we will discuss about the trophic levels and complete about the food chain and the trophic levels.